Over the past weekend, tens of thousands of Israelis rallied in the cities of Tel Aviv, Haifa and Jerusalem to protest against what they are calling erosion and downgrading of democracy. Anger has been rising among the common Israelis and members of the judiciary over proposed judicial reform by Benjamin Netanyahu. As per Israeli media, the crowd at Tel Aviv's Habima Square had swelled to at least 80,000 despite cool and rainy weather. In this video, we decode what are the changes that the Israeli PM Benjamin Netanyahu has proposed and why are people so livid about it. But before that, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to One India. Just 2 weeks back, Justice Minister Yariv Levin had presented plans for what the right-wing government described as a reform of governance. Those proposals would include several legislative initiatives aimed at limiting the power of the Israeli Supreme Court and the legal advisors to the government. During the protests, the protesters held Israeli flags and signs that said criminal government, the end of democracy, and also shouted other slogans. Now, let's look at the issues in little detail now. The first controversial proposal is that of a derogation clause or an override clause, which would allow the Israel's parliament, the Knesset, to annul Supreme Court's decision with a simple majority. What this means is that suppose the Israeli Supreme Court rules on anything very reformative, but if the lawmakers are not in favor of it due to their own political calculations, then they can overturn that decision just by a simple majority. In the current scheme of things, the Supreme Court can't just discard government decisions or legislation. It must rule that the action being cancelled contradicts one of Israel's basic laws. There are actually 12 laws that are supposed to be a foundation for a future Israeli constitution. But what this plan envisages is that it would give the smallest possible majority in the Knesset, just 61 lawmakers out of 120, the power to then override the Supreme Court. Israel does not have a constitution and the separation of powers between the legislative and executive branches is very weak. This makes the Supreme Court the only institution with the power to limit government actions and legislation passed by a parliamentary majority. But this proposal would take that power away. Another major point of contention is about changing the composition of the committee that selects Israel's judges. This part, if agreed upon, would increase the power of the politicians and decrease that of judges and lawyers, effectively giving the government the power to appoint judges and, more critically, the Supreme Court justices. Then there are plans to turn the legal advisors who report to the Attorney General into political appointees totally controlled by ministers. This matters because if a minister wants to take illegal action, the legal advisor's role is to warn them that they are planning an illegal move and to raise the matter with the Attorney General. Under the proposed arrangements, the legal advisors chosen by the ministers will lack the independence to challenge the politicians. And finally, the nail in the coffin is to cancel the reasonableness standard that has been used by the court over the years to reverse government decisions. All this would effectively make the Supreme Court an exercise in futility and an institution that would just be a paper tiger. The opponents of the move claim that Netanyahu is doing this to cling on to power, to make the judiciary pliant so that he could have his own corruption charges thrown away. And that is why tens of thousands of Israelis have been protesting against these judicial reforms. We hope you would like this new video. Thank you for watching.
Subscribe to One India channel and never miss an update.